Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Move Mondays here in the fantastic Palo Alto Aptos Labs office. To my left, we have...
I'm Bo. I'm a software engineer working in the ecosystem.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry. I'm production engineer.
David, software engineer.
Greg, software engineer.
And I'm Matt, also a software engineer, and very happy to see that this AV setup finally seems to be working. If you don't hear us, please let us know in Discord. Otherwise, we will keep going. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to trickle in to join. And what better time to say Aptos Labs is hiring. AptosLabs.com/careers. There are a wide variety of positions available, both technical, non-technical, everything from engineering to product, design, and many, many, many more roles. So please take a look, AptosLabs.com/careers. Tell your friends, tell your grandma. You never know who might be sitting at this table next week. Oh, what an exciting week it's been. There are quite a lot of updates, which is always exciting to see. And a presentation from Bo to talk about the new edition of the token NFT standard. Super exciting. But before we jump into that, we can get a couple of updates on Devnet.
Sure. Last week, we released Devnet again on our Thursday. So many exciting changes and updates. So first of all, staking. We have deprecated our previous version of the staking, taking all the feedbacks and all the learnings we had during AIT2. So now there is a completely new staking model, which got us rid of the lockup, like manual lockup time you have to set periodically, and then we move towards a subscription model, which hopefully reduce tons of operational pains for people managing their validator nodes. And please take a look of our staking modules to see how it works, and then read more about our documentations. Hopefully we will refresh that this week so that you can read it on the documentation site. And then next is the token standard, which Bo will be talking about later. There is lots of updates in the NFT standards, and the token SDKs are also updated. API, also we had a new version of the Aptos node API. So this is the API that user and DFs interact with for most of the core operations. Take a look of our V1 version of the new APIs and then see the changelog for all the new updates and new features, improvements, and all that. We also released a new version of the SDK for TypeScript. So feel free to also check out the changelogs to see all the new exciting improvements. DB, so there's huge improvements on the performance by pipelining the ledger committing, state authentication, generation, and persistent. We also added the compressions to consensus and state sync network messages. So hopefully the network bandwidth usage is going to be improved by a lot. There's also additions state sync metrics to help check the connected peers and the priority of the different peers. Also, we resolved the issue for the memory leak happening last week on the Devnet for the full nodes. So you shouldn't be seeing any aggressive memory increasing on the full nodes or anywhere anymore. So if you notice anything, let us know. And we're expecting likely another Devnet release this Thursday. So yeah, stay tuned.
Thank you, Sherry. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them into our chats in Twitch or in the dev discussion in Discord. And Magnum is correct. Someone did indeed buy an owl. That is the name of the camera system that we're using. Let us know how you like it. I think hopefully the audio and video should be better this time around, and hopefully going forward we'll have fewer problems. Whew, fun times. Also a small update, I guess. The Explorer is now fully open source. Aptos Labs repo/Explorer, you can take a look. It's a stateless front-end application. We're working on adding a bunch of things to it for IT3, And so you can take a look at, I think, potentially Aptos Labs' first step for governance, for enabling voting on chain. Would you like to talk about tables?
Yeah, so just a quick update on tables that I think we skipped over due to my inavailability to actually update the release notes. But the gist of it is we took the feedback in that people want as much parallelism as possible in the table. And as you may be aware, using a length field in the table effectively meant that there's going to be a area of contention for adding or removing new elements to the table. And so we've actually concocted two tables, one that has a length so that you can still have that feature, but the default table no longer has a length. So anybody that's using that can benefit from that extreme parallelism that's now available to you. So really exciting. I think that's going to be particularly useful for projects that are building order books, much like Enconia, that are looking for as much parallelization as possible. So we'd love to hear any questions, comments, or feedbacks from you folks out there on that topic.
Fantastic. And now we have Wolfgang, who is going to take us through the new flow for publishing and something that I think everyone is excited about, module upgradability.
Yeah, so like can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
Sure
you.
about this. So I think I will maybe talk next week again in a little bit more detail about this, because not everything's are set out, but yeah, we get it. No? So and I think I said this already, get upgradability. I think I said this already last week. And it's based on the awesome design of the move language, and in particular, its intermediate bytecode, which allows us to check whether a module is actually compatible with its earlier version. We will also have the opportunity to basically download and upload all the stuff which belongs to a package to the chain. So you will have the option from the move toml file to refer not to Git, but to actually some running node or so in order to get the package you want to import, including, say, Aptos framework or the move standard lib or any package one of your buddies has written. So that's will help us to reduce all this confusion about versioning, because you just refer to the information of the package data on the chain where you actually plan to deploy your code. There is an experimental feature which I would like to know some feedback from the community. We have basically, when you upgrade, when you define a package, you have three modes of how the package can be handled when you upgrade it. One is essentially arbitrary. You can do whatever you want. And definitely I want to feedback whether you really need this. So I think that's a pretty dangerous feature. And we have some internal discussions whether we really want to support it. No? So arbitrary means you do whatever you want. And the next level is compatible. So that means you can upgrade if you pass this compatibility checks, which I was talking about. These compatibility checks, by the way, are running on chain. There is no way to circumvent them. It's not something happening via the SDK. It's really the upload process on chain. And then there is a third instance, which is called immutable, where you can say this package can never be updated. This is basically the story we have today. That is also important to have if people want to consume a package and want to be 100% sure it's not changed. Then they can look at this flag in the package. If it's immutable, there is a guarantee that it can never be changed. And you can never go back from immutable to compatible or to arbitrary. No? So whatever you choose, which level, there is no way back, which gives you as a consumer of such a package the guarantee that nothing has changed if that's what you want. Yeah, so like there was also the question, I think multiple times on Discord, whether we have a way to programmatically upload code, no? So in particular in the context of a resource account. Yeah, and that is possible. So there is basically a function now which can deploy code, and you need to have that code somehow in your transaction. So you need to pass it as a parameter or get it from somewhere. So you can, in theory, do that, but there is a big difference to something like Create2 in Solidity or EVM. You can deploy code in a transaction, but you cannot call that code in the same transaction. You can't call that code before you execute the next transaction. So that might be a little bit disappointing for some people, but that's just the way how it is. It's safer this way. So we do not support calling into arbitrary addresses which are not known ahead of time, or code which is not known ahead of time. It's one basic principle of move at this point of time for safety reasons. Okay. If there are any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Amazing. Thank you, Wolfgang. I'm super excited. I know that a lot of people in the community have been waiting quite some time for even the possibility of upgrading the modules. So this is really, really exciting. Next, I guess continuing the train of new developments in Move and the Move framework, we have Bo. We'll be talking about the token standard.
Hi everyone. We released the new token standards last Thursday after starting the existing use cases of different tokens in different ecosystems. So we came up with different design. We came with these 4 design principles that lead to our current implementation of our token standards. So first, we want to provide a standard implementation to improve the interoperability across different ecosystem projects. And the second, we want to achieve the maximum liquidity through defining NFT, fungible, and semi-fungible tokens in one contract. So there's different types of tokens can be stored, transferred, and transacted in the same way. And the third thing is we want to enable the customization of token properties. So basically, the users can define their own properties and store them on-chain. Lastly, we want to reduce the cost of minting large number of NFT tokens. So we support this lazy on-chain mint through this semi-fungible token. Specifically for last Thursday's update, there are this 5 main updates. First, we still keep the same principle as previous token standard we have. Yeah, we use one contract for all token types. So these different tokens are generated based on their different set of parameters from the same contract. And also we added this royalty feature, and we added this mutation config. So basically specify which field in the metadata is mutable. The second update is on the customizability. So now in the token data, we have a property map, which is essentially a key values map that can store these properties on chain. And secondly, we notice the use case that there could be multiple tokens share the same token data, and we want these tokens to have its own value for this property map. So now this token has its own property map that's identified through this property version. And the third thing is we support this on-chain lazy mint. So basically for the users want to mint a large number of tokens, so they can mint maybe suppose 10 million tokens in one transaction. These are fungible tokens. They can then mutate this token, and each token now can have its own property version, and which in turn make it an NFT. So basically, the creators can pay the actual cost for creating this NFT when a user is demanding this NFT. The first update is we deployed the token package to 0.3 as a separate package. Lastly, we have some early token SDK and the token index implementation, and we are listening to the community feedbacks and fix any issues we come across as early as possible. Lastly, we have this tutorial, and you can check more details the data model and some examples of these different entry functions in this tutorial. Yeah, that's all. I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you both. If there are any questions, again, please paste any questions inside of our Twitch, where we will always take a look, as well as, if you'd like, in Discord, in the dev discussion room language channels. I think we can move on to questions from the community.
Let me pop that up real fast. It's actually been a pretty quiet week from the community. So let me run through here. I think the first thing I can call out is questions about white papers and tokenomics. I think the white papers can be published very, very soon. So, keep your eyes on Twitter, Medium, and all those other good places. Tokenomics will quickly follow suit. I think there was a question in here about some of our timelines. If you followed along on our most recent Medium post, as well as last week, we mentioned that we're going to be doing AIT3 registration at the end of next week, I believe. Wow, that's so soon.
Very soon.
And then we're going to actually be freezing the code for our hopeful launch towards the end of Q3 or sometime in autumn. And I think those are the critical dates that are relevant in that space. Let me see. Max, can you give an update on project
Project is going. So one of the things that we're working on is project. And we call it because we'd like a centralized place for the community to be able to talk about what they're working on. Because we've seen a lot of questions of who's building on Aptos, what are they building? And really we're looking to create almost like a app store kind of display where you can go and see who's building, some screenshots, user flows. Really, like the app store is, I think, a great model for it. Additionally, you'll have a user profile where you can talk about who you are a bit, what your skill sets might be, what you're looking for, and you'll be able to see who specifically is working on what projects if you want. There are privacy settings to stay anonymous. The cool thing is, potentially in the future, we've seen a lot of questions in Discord of developers looking for projects to contribute to, but also for projects that are looking for developers or designers or really anyone in the ecosystem. And the hope is that we can create a space to combine the two, to bridge between people who are building things and people who are looking to build on Aptos. And that is what we're calling Project. So that is coming very soon. Their UI UX is in a very good spot for it. And hopefully engineering work can actually begin probably this week.
That's exciting. Let me see. I think there was another question about where can I ask questions or get support for Move. There's the Discord group, the Move development channel inside of our site, our Discord. What do they call those things on Discord server?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can code. I cannot do social media, and so yeah, ask questions there. I think there's a very vibrant group. Not even much more active than even the Aptos Labs team is just the community that's been so great in helping navigate through all the different opportunities that exist within inside of the Move language, particularly on top of Aptos. There's a question about the Move prover, specifically how to run it. I think there's a couple, if you look inside the Move examples directory, you'll see actually a test harness in there to show you how you potentially run it. So feel free to jump inside of that directory to get an idea. Let me just I think that kind of covers the questions from the community this week. So pretty, well, obviously
Sweet.
From the type form. So that covers type form.
I do want to call out that people are excited about the new video montage and setup. We've got multiple positive feedback. So I think this is the first week where we've had consistent positive feedback about audio and video. So we finally got it, guys. We finally nailed it. Fingers crossed it continues working every week here on out. So one of the questions is Aptos framework coins. Is this potentially a bit confusing because we now have a coin and coins module?
The way I kind of perceive it is coins is a guide around multiple different types of coin, distinct coins. So yeah, sorry, English is a hard language, but effectively you can imagine coins is just there to provide the appropriate wrapper for multiple different implementations. And you want to actually, as a regular user, you won't be using coins, you'll be using coin directly. And hopefully it's not confusing. If it is, then let's talk about it. Let's come up with some alternatives. Also, the other thing is we have to avoid circular dependencies. And so that was one of the fun tasks to address there.
But if you do have a suggestion, we absolutely love and welcome both discussions on forum as well as in our GitHub and pull requests. So we are very open. Naming is hard. It's probably one of the hardest things in writing code. One of the other questions is, are there any SMT related docs coming?
We do have a media post to talk about SMT, like outside of the paper. If the paper was way too deep, I feel like the media post is a great way of getting started. But let us know if there's like even more summaries people wanted to hear. Maybe we can post to Twitter. We can ask Sasha.
Yeah,
Do we know if that's about storage or about the parallel execution?
that's a good question, Boris. Not you, Boris. That's a good question for Boris.
I'm playing with your names. I lost mine.
That's a good question for you, Boris. Is that related to parallel execution or storage? Either way, I do think that we have people here who could potentially both write and at some point better Medium articles that provide higher level overviews that aren't as technical as the white paper. I know that we had an internal presentation fairly recently on.
Maybe we can publish some recordings.
Yeah.
So on the sparse Merkle tree side of things, the team is actively iterating in that space to just get storage ready for mainnet. As soon as their work wraps up in that process, I'm confident that they're going to turn around and explain exactly the beauty of the Aptos Merkle trees.
So a question about storage actually is on-chain storage. How do you pay for it? Do you lock tokens up per kilobyte of data used? And then can you free those tokens up when you delete the data?
So we are explicitly making a choice to not allow for redemptions, because that basically makes some sort of land grabbing where you invest in storage when it's cheap, and then as storage becomes more expensive, you sell it back and make arbitrage on top of it. And so we explicitly don't want to see people trying to abuse resources inside the Aptos space. And so you'll pay for storage based upon the current available amount of total storage. And we'll continue to evaluate that as a community as the project moves forward. But at least at launch time, the intent is that the storage should be based upon the curve of expected storage available versus the amount taken. And the specifics will be available very shortly, as the implementation is actually actively being worked on right now.
Are there any projects that are currently working on central limit order books? There are. I think that if you take a look in Discord, there have been a couple of projects who have talked about working on not only central limit order books, but also plenty of the kind of additional things that you'd find in that DeFi ecosystem. But it is an open ecosystem. And so I highly recommend reaching out to those projects or letting us know what you think about them in Discord, or I believe some of them even have their own Discord. So for staking, I read that when you stake tokens in the validator, you have to specify a period for how long they're locked up for, and then you get rewards proportional to your remaining lockup period. Is that correct? How long is the max lockup period?
So as Sherry called out at the beginning, we've actually completely destroyed that initial approach to staking, despite the fact that it was really beautiful in that it really incentivized people to be active in the blockchain and the management of their staking. We also recognized it was nuanced and was going to add more overhead and actually maybe destabilize the network and not help people actually maximize, be incentivized to locking up rewards. And so we've moved to a subscription model. And so in the subscription model, you effectively say, I'm going to put these coins in there and they're going to stay in there for the entirety of it. I think we're looking at a 1 month lockup period right now, but it's up to, obviously the community and us all working together to nail down the specific time range, but you'd be resubscribing automatically on that monthly basis or that period basis. And if you want to remove, you specify, I want to remove at any point during that lockup phase. And then as soon as the next period is ended, your funds would be then available for whatever you'd like to do with it.
It's just like your internet service. Whenever you pay your monthly bill, you automatically renew to the next month. So
yes, and there's no prorated refund.
Yeah, I think the new staking module already released the Devnet. However, we haven't really refreshed the documentation, so sorry for the lagging. Hopefully, we will refresh it this week so that you can go read more details about our staking model.
And that will play a large role in IIT3?
Yes, we'll definitely test out in IIT3.
So, well, Wolfgang is ahead. Wolfgang's already answered. But I think this is a interesting question in general. So sorry, Wolfgang, I may ask you to answer it again, but the question is, for the current module updates, is it possible to update modules using some kind of DAO contract?
Yeah, absolutely possible. One thing you need to understand, that is exactly what we need to do, because we don't own Aptos. No? We don't own the Aptos framework. So a DAO organization will own the Aptos framework. And if the Aptos framework is going to be upgraded, we certainly need to do hot fixes or give you nicer, cooler functionality or whatever. That is basically a code upgrade managed by a DAO. How far we are in generalizing this to arbitrary organizations or so, and basically providing the infrastructure generically, that is something which we're still trying to figure out. No? But it's technically possible. If we are able to do it, then you will be also able to do it. Whether it will be convenient or not, that is a part we still need to figure out. No? So the background is, so we have, I don't know whether we have talked about this in this forums generally, but we have some way to have a voting process when a code upgrade is happening, and then certify or basically guard the code update via a successful vote. So that's, I think, what we should also do in general for other people. There was the other part question here, which I also want to make this clear. So we will release in this week's Devnet the core functionality for module upgrade. I'm not sure yet how much of the nice whistles and blows around that core functionality will be also there. So they might have to wait for another week. And also, I'm not sure whether documentation will be there. But basically, after the Devnet release, the next release, if you say Aptos move publish, then you can say it again and again if your module is still compatible, so you will be able to upgrade.
Awesome. Thank you, Wolfgang. I just want to make sure that everyone heard it, because I am super excited about upgrades, and I think that, you know, being able to reuse some of the same methods that we're doing for on-chain governance definitely makes a lot of sense in a DAO. In this new world where DAOs can actually upgrade their core contracts, which I think is super, super neat. Sorry, what does a full stack look like? So I think that's fun. So it depends on what you're building and how you're building it, right? So let's say you want to display the NFTs that someone might have in their account, most minimally you have a blockchain node, and then you have a dApp that potentially talks to a wallet. So you have three pieces here, right? You have a SDK in the front end that talks to nodes or some other source of data. You have a wallet potentially you can connect. And you have the blockchain itself, which acts as the store and execution layer for all of these contracts. Contracts or modules is the next layer, right? It's a layer on top of the blockchain itself that actually where your logic lives. Outside of this, you can also run an indexer. So if you're looking for deeper data or trying to see what are the most popular NFT projects across the entire blockchain, for example. That's when you run an indexer to take that data, push it into a relational database like Postgres, which gives you the ability to run queries that the node just doesn't, right? Because there's really no reason for the node to have to go scan through all of its history. Just not the job of the node. But when it's a Postgres, you can get really, really cool queries. And so we are working on a new version of our indexer. We are supporting our old indexer on a best effort kind of basis until then. If you have any bugs, please let us know. But the new indexer should be done relatively soon in the next couple of weeks. And alongside with it will also be a cool GraphQL API that gives access to all of the data on the Aptos chain. Will we ever enable the community to run validators in Devnet so they can practice?
That's a really good question. I think eventually, yes, but like right now, it is really not our priority at the moment. It takes a lot of effort and maintenance operations to support this type of things. And also because of the volume of those type of demand will be really, really big, we would need to gradually upgrading our network to a place that we can support many, like basically infinite number of validator nodes. Eventually, we definitely wanted to have a DevNet or testnet environment where people can just practice running the validator node. Also, this would be a great place for us to test our softwares and also help us to identify super high quality validator nodes so that we can actually staking to those validator nodes to join the actual mainnet. But right now at this stage, our resources really constrained. Our team don't really have the bandwidth to support that, but yes, definitely something we have on top of our mind and wanted to support in the long term.
Can a function take multiple setting accounts, not multi-sig, but multiple separate accounts which have all signed the same transaction?
Yeah, so we've got this multi-agent framework that exists that allows a primary sender, who would be the one that actually pays the gas fees, and then the rest of the signers would also be available with inside of the move space. I think we either have a guide or we are working on a guide that will be available shortly that actually walks you through that process. If you look inside of our tokens move file, we have this thing called the direct transfer that shows you an example of how to do so with a unilateral transfer. I think that's not currently in the TypeScript SDK, but it is in the Python SDK. So we'll be adding more examples of that soon so people can follow along and start using it for their own exciting purposes. I think also if you were following along, somebody had asked about concerns about the security of senders in Move in general. And so one of the things that we've been batting around internally is whether or not we could potentially have a hot and warm wallet kind of be going together inside of this multi-agent framework. And so the warm wallet would be where you store all of your resources, and the hot wallet would be the one that would actually be like a sandbox signer for doing operations, so that you can potentially call into arbitrary DApps without having to necessarily trust them by moving over just the minimal amounts of data, resource, or assets required to call into that ensuing functions. And so you would have a move would actually provide a really nice, clear separation between the two wallets. And so we'll probably be exploring that soon.
Amazing. So let's see. That's are you guys all in the same room? Yes.
Maybe.
We can neither confirm nor deny. Yeah, mainnet is still planned for Q3. And we'll be releasing information on tokenomics, etc. soon. And this time, every week we say soon, but every week it's getting sooner. Cool.
So I'm wondering whether we have updated the community about our achievements or progress in gas charting, because I saw there a couple of questions about gas over the time on Discord. So I think can just say that we are basically last week finished a major refactoring of the gas charting, which goes not only into the Aptos repo, but also happened in the Move language, and we are in the process of adapting that. There was also the question how we shard storage. These are all things that we are trying to figure out now. But we do have now a pretty flexible mechanism, which we didn't have before, which allows us to parameterize the gas cost and actually store the gas schedule on chain in a lot of detail. So we can adapt the gas schedule via the governance later once we are live, while we move forward. And we probably will have some aspects of dynamic charging. So let's say code publishing is an interesting thing. That's why coming also has a little bit to do with upgradability. As you can imagine, this compatibility checking, which I mentioned earlier, that is actually expensive. No? So in terms of computation. So we are not sure how much we charge you for that, but what we probably have to prevent is that someone goes and fires a module upgrade every minute to our chain. No? So like there will be potentially some dynamic aspect that as faster you are republishing, as more expensive it will become, and other aspects like this. In storage, I think there is also some thinking of having a more dynamic way how to, as a formula for the gas computation looks like. But I think there is a lot more discussion and documentation about this, which has to be provided before we go in mainnet. And this is in progress. I just want to assure you that we are looking at it deeply.
I think similar to that, Paul Fika is asking, is there a way to benchmark, get the gas cost of a transaction in order to find ways to minimize them?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So our unit tests give you information about the gas costs. So this is one way you can do it. But we also do have the intention, but this is really just intention, or there are no concrete plans to create some benchmarking test framework for gas, which we then probably can share also with the community. This is a good input. And until now, we thought about this more like something internally for us, for figuring out what is the right gas schedule for all the operations in Aptos move. But it might be also interesting for you guys. So if you have you want to optimize your app for gas, then you could use that framework too. That's definitely interesting.
Awesome. There's a question about parallel processing. And so parallel execution, sorry. The question is, are transactions being processed by a single validator leader or by multiple validators in parallel?
So not to go too deep in this, since we'll end up describing the entirety of consensus, but the gist of it is you have at any given phase in consensus, you'll have a single proposer stating out here are the next set of transactions that we all need to execute that gets disseminated to all validators, and they all execute those transactions at the same time. And as soon as there are 2/3 plus 1 stake weighted votes in response, they progress on to the next block. And a lot of this happens in parallel, like pipeline staging, all these other really fantastic things, but a very simplistic perspective, all validators should be processing all transactions. It's really important that you get that attribute. Otherwise, you don't guarantee that everybody agrees with the execution of the execution of the transactions, which is really important for global ordering.
Well, so questions are starting to slow down, but one of the questions is, what languages must you know to become an Aptos developer? Solidity is a great start, of course. The context here is that they only know JavaScript, Solidity, and CSS. So Solidity is a great start because it teaches you at the very least the decentralized nature, right? To think in terms of an application that anyone can use, anyone can modify. But the move language is Aptos' version of Solidity, right? Solidity to EVM is what move is to Aptos. And I think there's potentially a little bit more ramping up, but it provides a lot more guarantees around things that you can and can't do. It's resource oriented, which makes it very clear whether you're moving, copying, cloning a resource. So a lot of the bugs that you find in Solidity, like reentrancy, for example, are just not possible to have a move. And so we've seen a lot of people coming over from Solidity or from other languages be really excited about it because there's really a large amount the compiler will catch for you before you deploy. Similarly, dApps are built, especially the front end, with JavaScript and CSS. So it's a fantastic start. Hopefully by Mainnet, we'll be able to release kind of a React starter kit for building your own dApp with React and our SDK together. But if not, then the governance dApp that we're putting into our Explorer is a great place to start to take a look and see how we're managing state, as well as user preferences, wallet selection, and all the kind of fun stuff. But I'm not going to say it's hard to learn. I highly recommend you take a look. There's a bunch of tutorials that are linked a couple messages up. And yeah, let us know what you think. Let's see. Questions about economics, launches, tokens. more information will be coming out on all of that when it's ready. As an engineer, it's definitely not something I can comment on. But tokenomics will be available soon. We've been saying that for some time, and I promise that every time you hear it, we are much, much closer to both tokenomics and mainnet. So as we get closer, all of that will be public, all that will be revealed. Yeah, sorry for not being able to provide potentially a more thorough answer, but I promise a thorough answer is coming soon. Cool. This seems to be all of the questions. Unless anyone wants to sneak any in. Cool. Then the reason napkin. So thank you everyone for attending Move Mondays. We will be here again, same time next week, same day next week, and we'll be happy to answer any and all of your questions on Discord in the meantime. Have a good one.
See you guys.